Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this professional learning opportunity. I am Scott Mathias from NCEA, and I will be facilitating this webinar today. Just a few housekeeping notes as people are joining. If you have questions during the presentation, feel free to use the Q&A or chat windows. We will be monitoring the questions and we'll try to answer them all in the allotted time. Within 24 hours of today's webinar, I will email everyone a link to the recording, as well as an online survey. Once you fill out the survey, a certificate of completion for the webinar will be emailed to you. Today's webinar, Digital Citizenship 101, is being led by Christina Jantra, Chief Navigator at Neptune Navigate. Before I turn it over to our presenter, let us begin in prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Father, we pray for more solutions to protect children and young people from accessing inappropriate and harmful online material. Please help the government to pass effective legislation and bless initiatives that provide education and advice for those affected. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Christina, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Scott. And wow, your prayer was perfect for this conversation because the CDC came out this week. They just announced this week a new report where they looked at the impact that all of this technology, specifically social media, is having on our young people. And I'm just going to give you a couple of highlights that will help us focus on why we are going to spend the next few minutes talking about digital citizenship. So from the CDC, they said 3 out of 5 teen girls have felt a persistent sadness, and that number is double what they're seeing in young boys. 3 and 5, persistent sadness. 1 in 3 girls have seriously considered suicide. And the rate of sadness is the highest that they've seen in the last decade. And I don't think that surprises us, considering we are a year or two out of the pandemic. It didn't seem to do our students any favors. And then 1 in 5 girls report being the target of cyberbullying. And so, considering those newest findings from the CDC, that's why I've committed the rest of my professional career to trying to help equip teachers and students and parents how to better navigate this digital landscape that we're living in. So as we get started, and hopefully you can still see my screen, first I'm just going to ask, I can see we have quite a few joining us. If you will, in the chat, tell me what your role is at school, just so I have an idea of who's with us. As you do that, I'll just let you know from my background, I spent most of my career teaching English, and then I was a librarian, and then I was the director of digital learning. And the last 10 years of my career in private school was leading a one-to-one iPad program at our private school in Tyler, Texas. And as we started looking or considering handing out iPads to all of our students, I knew that we needed to better equip our families on how to better manage the technology that was already in their homes. And so I created a PowerPoint. I would love to be able to say that it was a Google slide presentation, because I have lived in Google for probably the last, I don't know, almost 10 years, but it was a PowerPoint. And from that, it really grew into what this business is that I have now, which is called Neptune Navigate. We have a curriculum that where we teach students, teachers, and parents how to navigate this digital world safely. Now, let's see if I can move forward. This is the scripture that frames everything that we do. It's from this that we create all of our content. It's what motivates me to keep doing this and to continue this work. And it is out of Proverbs. It's probably not unfamiliar to you. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And I think as educators, we have this unique ability, especially in our private and parochial schools, to do just this, to help guard our kids' hearts, our students' hearts. And as you pray, Scott, man, I hope, my prayer is that we can get legislation that will do a better job of protecting the digital world that our kids are so present in. And so this is what motivates me. And so when I consider the news coming out of the CDC this week, we have our jobs cut out for us. We have much work to do. And so as we talk about digital citizenship, just so we can be clear or have a common vocabulary, for us, this is the definition that we use for a responsible digital citizen. It's someone who develops the skills and knowledge to effectively, and there's our key word, to effectively use all of this digital technology. And they do it in order to participate responsibly in social and civic activities. And look, that responsibility part I know is hard, considering we're dealing with teenagers whose frontal lobes, whose brains aren't fully developed. But I think that we can lead by example. I think that we can educate them in ways that informs them how to better navigate this digital world. So why do we do this? I'll tell you quickly my why. And I wrote about this in the Momentum magazine. I think it was published last month. But my why is, real fast, is that I had a student, the first year that we introduced iPads in our school, I had a student who would spend her senior year testifying in 3 trials because when she was in the 7th grade as a 12-year-old, she played Yahoo Pool, an innocent enough internet game. But internet games are different than the Pong of my childhood, which I know ages me terribly. But internet games now, you don't play against your phone or the computer, you play against a global world. And so you really have no idea who you might connect with. And in this student of mine, in her case, at 12, taking her laptop into her bedroom and closing the door, and we'll talk about that in a minute, she played with a guy who was late college age, and he ended up grooming her from junior high until her junior year of high school when he came to our town and he raped her. And she ended up having to testify at 3 trials before we got him seated in the Texas State Penitentiary. And he was out of prison before she graduated from college. And as she stood in front of our student body and told that story, I left that chapel knowing that I had work to do, that I could do something. I could help our school parents. I could help my community better and more safely navigate this digital world that we are all living in. And so that's my why. And hopefully you have your why on what motivates you to help students better navigate this world. And look, here's some Common Sense Media. At the end of 2021, they did a new study. So we're coming out of the pandemic. Schools all over the country in 2020 had sent their students home with devices. We were all doing school online. And Common Sense Media did a new survey at the end of 2021 where they wanted to see what impact did that pandemic, did doing school online, how did that impact screen time for teenagers? And it wasn't good. The results weren't good. And you can see here on the screen, the report showed a 17% increase from 2019 to 2021. And I taught English. I didn't teach math for a reason. So seeing 17%, while I can tell that it's an increase, I needed a better grasp of that number. And so I did some work on that. And so what it represents was in 2021, for teens 13 to 18, the average amount of time they were spending on screens was 8 hours and 39 minutes. 8 hours and 39. That is a full-time job plus overtime. And consider this, in a 24-hour span, I mean, the bulk of their time is spent on a screen. Now, some of that is doing school, but the majority of that is on social media. And what does that really look like? I really needed to understand these numbers better. And so what that translates to, what those 8 hours and 39 minutes per day translates to 3,157 hours that are lost in a year. I don't know if you're a fan of Malcolm Gladwell. I read everything he writes. And you may recall one of his books, I think it was Outlier, where he proposed this idea of 10,000 hours. If you want to become an expert in something, then commit 10,000 hours to it. And so if you consider that concept of the 10,000 hours, when you look at these 3,000 hours that our kids are spending on screens per year, if you extrapolate that out over a high school career, you've more than met your 10,000 hours. And my question to parents is, what are our kids becoming experts in? What are we losing? What's losing out? Is the next great cellist? Are we losing that person to doom scrolling on TikTok? I just don't know that 3,000 hours a year is time well spent. And here's what the number that really bothers me, that 3,157 hours equals 131 days. 131 days spent mindlessly scrolling the internet. And that's a lot of time. That's a lot of time that we could use learning a new skill, serving our community. I mean, there's so many more things we could do than spend 131 days on the internet. And before we get too judgmental or too critical of what our kids are doing, I propose, or I ask you, what do you think? How many times a day, on average, how many times a day do you pick up your phone? I mean, I'm sitting here at this desk. I'm in a hotel in Chicago, and I have, if you could see behind the scenes, I have my laptop in front of me, obviously, that we're doing this Zoom call with. I have my iPad beside me that I have some notes that I don't want to forget about. And then I have to the left of me, my iPhone that's set on Do Not Disturb, that's running a clock. And then I have an Apple Watch just to top it all off. So I'm not asking you this question of how many times do you pick up your phone each day because I'm doing it better. I'm not. What I'm asking you is to consider all of this technology that we have. Is it benefiting us? Is it enhancing our life? Or is it bringing us more stress? Because that's what we're finding with the CDC. And like, I promise you, I'm not here to tell you we need to get rid of all of it. My life is benefited greatly from the technology that I have available to me. I mean, in a few hours, I'm going to be sitting in the airport here in Chicago waiting for a late plane home, and I will have on my iPad access to almost my entire library of books thanks to my Kindle app. On my phone or on my iPad, I have access to podcasts where I can learn so many things and have accessible to me. So I'm not here to say, please hear me, I'm not here to say that all this technology is bad. I'm grateful for it. Look, I was grateful for it yesterday. My sweet little 86-year-old mom who is living her last days on this earth FaceTimed me yesterday because her caregiver was generous and helped her do that. And so I got to see my mom's face through FaceTime and talk with her. And so I'm grateful for the technology. We can be grateful for it, but at the same time, we can be aware of the damage that it can do to all of us, but especially to our students. So the answer, the average number of times American adults check their phones each day, 344 times. How shocked are you by that? That's a lot. That's a lot in one day. And our screen time, while it's less than teenagers because we are adults, we have fully developed brains and we have jobs and family and responsibility. Our time, our average screen time is much less than teenagers, but still, the latest surveys indicate that our screen time on average is 2 hours and 54 minutes per day. That's a lot. That for us translates to 44 days out of the year that we spend on screens. And for some of us, look, I have an educational tech company. I have to spend a lot of time doing research, writing. I'm on screens quite a lot, but it does give me pause and causes me to wonder how it's impacting my own life. And so as we go back and think about that verse out of Proverbs, above all else, guard your heart. I need to consider that daily, how all of this technology is impacting my heart. And so when I talk to students and teachers, I love to start out by just reminding you how much power all this technology has. So you probably recognize this picture. I couldn't believe it when I considered it just this morning. It was 14 years ago. In 2009, this United U.S. Airways flight safely, which is an interesting word to say, safely landed in the middle of the Hudson River. And it was 2009, and Twitter was two years old. And Jack Dorsey, who had started Twitter, was seriously considering shutting it down because it just wasn't taking off. This new social media platform that limited you to 140 characters, people just weren't getting it until Giannis Crooms took this picture. He was on the Staten Island ferry that morning. He saw the plane coming in for its crash landing, and he took this picture and he tweeted it out to his 170 followers. 170 followers. That's important because it didn't just stay with his 170 followers. And sometimes I think our students think that they are engaging in a social media platform in a vacuum, that whatever they share, let's say on Snapchat to their small group of friends, will just stay among that group of friends. And this tweet from Giannis Crooms is a great example. It doesn't stay. It didn't stay with his 170 followers. Within an hour, it had been retweeted 4.9 million times. That is the power that social media and all of this technology has. It amplifies everything, the good and the bad. And that's what we need to express to our students That's what we need to continually remind them, because if it's something good that they have to share, that's awesome. But what I've seen over and over in the news media is it's not what they're sharing that's good that gets amplified as much as the bad. And here is a cautionary tale. This was a couple of years ago. This picture comes, as you can see, from the New York Times. We can all, and I'd encourage you to share this story with your students. Mimi Groves was a student in Tennessee, and Mimi had two goals in her life as she was approaching high school, and it was to make the cheer squad at the University of Tennessee and get in to the University of Tennessee. And she worked really hard all through high school to achieve those goals. But Mimi, when she was 16, when she got her driver's permit, she took her phone and in a 3-second, please hear that, in a 3-second video celebrating that she had gotten her learner's permit, she shot a 3-second Snapchat video and shared it with a small group of friends on Snapchat. 3-second to a very small group of friends. And that TikTok that Snapchat did not stay between all that small group of friends. It got shared. It was screenshotted. And as you know, the lure of Snapchat is that the video is there for 30 seconds and then poof, it's gone. And we all know that's not true, that it resides in temporary files on your phone. Law enforcement can get it, but even easier than that, someone viewing a Snapchat can take a screenshot or a screen recording, and then they have it and can do with whatever they want with it. And that's exactly what happened to Mimi. It was shared among her school at that time. Her school was experiencing some really stressed emotions, stressed relationships between the majority white students in that school and the minority students in that school. And the minority students at her high school felt like the administration was ignoring the problems that were felt by the minority students. And so Mimi shares her video, and it gets shared beyond the group she shared it with. And one student in particular received that video, and he kept it and he held on to it. And he thought there would be a time, he hoped there would be a time when he could use it, and he did. The day that Mimi announced she had made the cheer squad at the University of Tennessee, one of her classmates, Jimmy Gaffigan, shared on Twitter the 3-second video that she had shot where she lip sang a rap song, and in it used a racial slur. And that video came out just after the George Floyd incident happened in Minnesota, when race relations in this country were just boiling over. And this video of Mimi added to that, and the consequences were swift. The consequence from the University of Tennessee was that she was dropped from the squad and told that it would be in her best interest not to come to the University of Tennessee, that the outcry of social media had been pretty strong, and they thought they could not ensure her safety. And Jimmy Galligan, he was quoted in the New York Times article as saying that he wanted to get her where it would hurt. He wanted her to see and understand the severity of the word that she used. And look, we could spend the rest of the time debating his actions. Was it fair? Was it not? And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And that's what we need our students to understand, is that when they put something out into the digital world, they lose all control of it. And what I have come to understand is that fairness, or even better, grace, doesn't seem to reside on the internet. And so a 3-second video shared to a very small group of friends had an impact on Mimi Grove's life that she will feel for many years to come, because what we try to teach students is this: 2 really important rules of the internet, and that is everything is permanent. You see, from here on out, when you Google Mimi Grove's name, when future employers Google her name, they're going to see all of the news articles about this incident. She's going to have to be explaining this for the rest of her life, because the 2 rules are everything is permanent. Everything is permanent on the internet, because we all have the ability to take a screenshot and save it, just like Jimmy Galligan did. And the other rule is nothing is ever really private. See, Mimi thought she was sharing that Snapchat, that celebration of getting her learner's permit with a few friends. It's never really private on the internet. Those are great lessons to teach our students. So there are some inherent problems that I'd like to talk to you about. And this first one is really close to my heart, because if you remember from the very beginning, I told you that the CDC said that 1 in 5 teenage girls reports they have been the target of cyberbullying online. And so this, if you can see on your screen, is a screenshot that I took from Twitter. In my town, every school, every public school and every private and parochial school in my town has their own anonymous social media page. Most of them are on Twitter, and it will be what I search for here is MHS, because in America there are so many high schools that are MHS, whatever the M stands for. There are many MHSs. And so I searched on Twitter for MHS Confessions, and it's a page full of high schools all over the country, anonymous social media pages where students are encouraged to send in pictures or comments about other students. And the purpose of these pages is just to make fun of, to degrade other students in compromising positions. I was speaking last summer to a group of athletes up in Indianapolis, and as I was talking to them about these anonymous social media pages, a boy who was in the audience got out his phone and he started searching through his phone, and I thought, oh, I've lost him. He's not paying attention anymore. And then he holds up his phone and motions to hand it to me. And I was like, what is this? He goes, yeah, my school has one. Here's what they posted of me. And it was a picture of this student, this incredible athlete student. He was in chemistry class and he had fallen asleep. And he was leaning his head, and the picture was him leaning his head. His eyes were closed. He had drool coming out of his mouth. And someone in class took a picture of it and shared it on the anonymous social media page, the purpose of which was to make fun of him, to show him in a moment of weakness. And so my challenge to you is, does your school have this? Are your students doing this? It needs to be on your radar. We need to be aware of it. I'm not saying that you need to have someone at school become the police of social media, but you need to be aware that this happens, that it doesn't seem to be going away. So for our purposes, since we're talking about this is an area where students are cyberbullied, just so we have a common vocabulary, the definition that we use for cyberbullying is when someone purposefully and repeatedly uses some form of technology to upset or torment another person. And those two words that I have highlighted are so important because it's purposefully. It's not just an unintended rudeness where you post something and your intention was not to hurt someone. But that other word that's highlighted is so important because we water down cyberbullying if we just call everything that's mean online cyberbullying, because not everything is, but it's when it is purposeful and when it is repeated over and over. And here, look, the statistics on cyberbullying are not good. I told you that CDC said that 1 in 5 teenage girls has reported being the target. This number that I'm showing you, the 59% is from 2018. It was a 2018 Pew report before the pandemic, before our screen time increased. This was what our kids were experiencing online. And that statistic bothers me, but this one bothers me more. Paul Coughlin, in his book, Free Us from Bullying, he found 70% of our students, 70% of kids never report cyberbullying. They suffer in silence. And that, wow, that should give us pause. So tomorrow morning, when you stand before your students in class, think about that number. Look at your kids, check in with your kids, make sure they're okay, because if the numbers are correct, you have some students in your class who are suffering in silence, who need a trusted adult to come alongside them and help them deal with the cyberbully. Think about that tomorrow when you show up for class. See, I was reading recently Brene Brown's book, Atlas of the Heart. I don't know if you've read it or if you're familiar with Brene Brown's work, but Atlas of the Heart is an incredible book. It examines the 86, which that number was new to me, but 86 human emotions. I didn't know we had 86. But according to her work, we do. And one of the emotions that she looked at was humiliation. And I know this seems like I'm taking a left turn here when we're talking about technology. I promise you I'm not. Stick with me on this, because this one, it's important. So out of Brene Brown's book, Atlas of the Heart, she defined humiliation as unjustified mistreatment that violates one's dignity and diminishes one's sense of worth as a human being. And so when we think about what our motivation is from the very beginning of this conversation, from where we started with Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart. I think as educators, at least it's been my perspective that it's kind of been my goal, my job, to help guard my own children's hearts, and to the best of my ability to guard my students' hearts. So when we think about humiliation, unjustified treatment that violates one's dignity and diminishes one's sense of worth, and where she took this in her book really stuck with me. And she made reference to this journal, which just gives me pause that here in 2023, we have to even have a journal called the Journal of School Violence. But you and I both watch the news, and you and I, we all know that this has been our reality. And this particular study was entitled What We've Learned from Columbine. And what they did was they examined the profile of 10 school shooters from 1999 to 2010, I think was the span. And they weren't able to talk to any of the shooters who were incarcerated. But what they did was they took a deep look at all of their social media, at everything they could find online about the student. And their finding was shocking. And this was the conclusion, the quote from their study. In every case, the shooters described how they had been ridiculed, taunted, teased, harassed, or bullied by peers, spurned by someone in whom they were romantically interested, or put down in front of other students by a teacher or school administrator. All events that led to profound humiliation. And so I'll just go back to that Twitter search that I did, MHS confessions. Are your students experiencing cyberbullying? Are they being humiliated on a social media platform which is amplified beyond the school walls? We need to look out for students. We need to be aware of the ones that are suffering in silence. Can we talk for a minute about the numbers? You know, we're living in a culture now that says, go big or go home. We have kids who want to reach, they want their video on TikTok to go viral. In 2017, again, before the pandemic, and I mention that only because I think it's even more now. I think the result of the pandemic was that increased screen time. And so I think some of these numbers have grown. But in 2017, there was a British study of 1,000 British students. And they were asked what their number one career choice was. Their number one career choice was to be a famous YouTuber. Our kids seem to deeply desire fame, which I think has been at the expense of the common and the average. When did being common or average become such a negative? I truly don't understand it. I mean, even Lady Gaga, who has reached astronomical fame, who there's no way she can go to the grocery store. There's no way she can go out in public without security. I mean, even her security guards a few years ago, her dog walker, her dog was even so popular and famous that someone kidnapped it. But Lady Gaga even has said in the media that fame is a prison. So if the uber famous are saying that fame is a prison, what does it say about our students' desire to be famous? Are they wanting to impose that kind of prison on themselves? But here's what I would love for you to share with your students. Pose this question to your students. Ask them, and as I will ask you, what does $119.60 buy you? There was a documentary last year on HBO Max. It's called Fake Famous. Fake Famous. And the point of the documentary was the producer wanted to take 3 average people who had no inherent talent or gifting, and who had a very small following on social media. And for $119.60, they bought 7,500 followers and 2,500 likes. They bought followers, they bought likes. See, there are these bot farms where you can buy for not a lot of money followers and likes. Why is that important? It's important because what we see is our students are motivated by the numbers on social media. They'll post a picture on Instagram and then they'll watch to make sure that it gets enough likes. And if it doesn't, they take it off. They are motivated by the number of followers they have. They watch and see who comes and who goes. The numbers are causing anxiety and depression to rise at all-time high levels. The stress that this gives our kids, and what I want you to share with your students is those numbers can be a lie, and often are a lie. If you can buy 7,500 followers for $119, if you're really motivated, the numbers that are causing you stress are the numbers that if you look at your numbers and they aren't like everybody else's, those numbers that make you feel less than. But if you know that those numbers could be a lie, does that change things? I hope that it does. Our students need to know this, that the numbers are a lie, that their identity and their worth cannot be found in numbers that can be bought. But all of this technology, all of this social media means that school follows them everywhere. It doesn't go away because their phone doesn't go away. You know that. You probably battle that in your classroom every day, keeping the phones put away during class time. School follows them everywhere. So if they have a bad experience at school, if they have an argument with their best friend, or if something happens in the hallway and they're embarrassed, they don't get the respite of going home and leaving it behind them. Instead, what they get is it being discussed on social media, or if a picture is taken, like for my athlete friend who fell asleep in chemistry. He didn't want everybody to know he'd fallen asleep. He sure didn't want his coaches to know he'd fallen asleep in chemistry, but there it was for all to see. And so consider that as you're dealing with your students, that the stress on them, it just never stops. And because of their increased screen time, you know what the screen's doing to their brain. It's a constant hit of dopamine. And so these brains of our students, which are not fully developed, are being saturated with dopamine. And so when they fall asleep in class, or when they can't stay focused in algebra, or they can't grasp that statistics lesson that you're trying to teach, there's a reason possibly that their brains are just exhausted. And so school follows them everywhere. They can't get away from it. And I think we've made some wrong assumptions about them. I think because we've called them for so long digital natives, we assume that they can handle all of this. We assume that because we don't have to tell them how to use these devices, that they would know how to handle cyberbullying, or that they would know how to handle information overload. But they can't, trust me, they can't. They can, without any instruction from us, they can use any of these digital devices as entertainment tools. They need no help from us. But to use them responsibly, they need instruction from us. To use them as educational tools, they need instruction from us. And that's where we come in as educators, to teach them how to set healthy boundaries, to encourage them to limit that screen time. That's why I love theater departments. That's why I love athletic departments and music departments, because the kids that are involved in those extracurricular activities, all that practice time, all of that extra time they spend in those endeavors is limiting their screen time, and that has to be healthy and good. I think also we have to talk to them about sexting. There's a recent study, it is on the rise. Sextortion, according to the FBI, is on the rise, and we can no longer assume that our kids won't do it. They're doing it. They think that they can share an inappropriate picture with their boyfriend or girlfriend, and it will just stay between the two of them. But let's review. Remember the two rules that I said live solidly in the digital world. One, everything is permanent and nothing is ever really private. and sexting in all states is illegal. But besides that, in our effort to guard their heart, let's guard them, let's educate them on this, to guard their heart, to know that their worth is not defined by what they share, that they don't give that away, that they think more highly of themselves so that they are able to stand up when they're encouraged to share inappropriate things on the internet. I have one solution that I'd like to share with you, and I share this all the time with teachers and coaches, really anyone who will listen. And that is this: I would love if you would take some time personally and audit all of your social media. Go back through all of your social media and ask yourself, does this do all of these pictures, do all of these posts that I've made, do they today represent who I am and who I want to present myself to be? And if it doesn't, clean it up, delete things. But here's what I ask you as educators. When I was teaching high school English, junior English, at some time at the beginning, at the first semester, our junior English teachers would always pause what they were teaching at the time, and they would work for a few days, maybe a whole week, and give students time to write and develop a good quality college essay. They would devote class time just for that. And I know probably many of your schools do that as well. What I would encourage you to consider is giving students time, high school students, let's pick junior year, because if they've had social media since they were 13 and now they're 16, 17 years old, they've got quite a large digital footprint. So would you consider giving class time for students to audit all of their social media, to go back through all of their Instagram to the very beginning, to look if by chance you have a few who are on Facebook. I know it's just we older people using Facebook, but if you have, if they have Facebook, go back, look at the comments that you've made, look at the tweets that you've retweeted, look at the pictures and audit it and consider, does this represent who I am today? Because hopefully we all understand the purpose of education is to grow and evolve and change. And so what they believed when they were in the 8th grade at 13 may not be the same thing they believe today. And look, I could spend the next hour showing you example after example of college students who got to college or who lost scholarships, who lost admittance into college because of something that was found in their history on social media. One of the things I ask parents to do, sit down with your kids, look at their social media, look at who they're friends with, look at who they've connected with, who gets to speak into your kids' life. Are those the people you want your kids following? Look at the number of people your kids follow. So do a social media audit. I would love for you to take me up on that. I think that would be quality time spent for your students, because as a junior, they're going to start applying for scholarships and applying to colleges or applying for jobs. And I can tell you, as someone who owns a business, everyone, before we interview them, I look them up on social media. And if what I see on social media, I don't think fits with the culture that we are trying to protect in our company, we don't give them an interview. And so if you could encourage your students to do that with your own kids, do that yourself. Look through your social media and clean it up and make sure what you're putting out to the world is what you really want to put out to the world. I will give you, here's how you can reach me. We're at Neptune Navigate, and we, if you can follow us on all the socials. We create content, like I said, for students, for teachers, and for parents to try to help equip them to better navigate this digital landscape. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see the chat. And I'm going to, in the chat, let's see, in the chat, I'm going to share with you 2 links. One link is to the CDC article that I mentioned at the beginning, and I will do that now. Let's see, if you'll give me just a second, I'll do that. And then I'll take any questions. If you have any questions, here's the article from the CDC. Then from the Pew report on cyberbullying, which is from 2018, but I still think it's a good report to look at, especially as you work with teenagers. So there are the two reports. And so I'm going to quickly slide through, see if anybody has any questions. Man, it looks like you guys are from all over. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask y'all one final question. We have just a few minutes. What have you been hearing about ChatGPT? Anybody hearing, or have you already encountered it in school? I see the one question, Carolina Gunter, you asked, will you be including any content about AI? I'll just add this at the end. I am fascinated. I'm fascinated by that ChatGPT. I've tried it a couple of times, but I will tell you this: I ran into a teacher on TikTok, an AP English teacher who is using it in her English class, and I'm going to tell you real fast how she does that, and then we'll close. Here's how she's using it. She put into ChatGPT the prompt for a writing assignment that she gave her students. And then she let ChatGPT write the essay. And then she printed out that essay that ChatGPT wrote, and she handed it out the next day to her students, along with the rubric that she would be grading their papers with. People aren't seeing the links. I'll make sure you get the links to the 2 articles. And so she spent a whole class time saying, here's the essay ChatGPT wrote. Let's grade it based on what I've asked you to write. And so that was one way she used it. Another way she used it was for her, she has some special ed students in her class who can't read on the same level as her 11th graders. And so she was copying reading assignments that she was giving to her 11th graders, but for her special ed students, she was copying it, putting it into ChatGPT and asking it to rewrite it at a 4th grade reading level. And so she used it that way. But her final way that she shared most recently was this. Again, she put into ChatGPT the prompt that she had given her students. And she had ChatGPT write the essay. And then she graded it herself, and she marked out areas that were really weak, or areas where ChatGPT gave wrong information or quotes that weren't even in the text that they were working with. She took those weak areas out of the essay, gave that to the students, and said, here's the beginning of the essay, you improve it. And so those are just a couple of ways that I've been watching this AP English teacher use ChatGPT. Look, here's the truth. It's not going away, and we can't be scared of it. We need to just use our creativity to use it well, and to teach our students how to use it well. And it has some real weaknesses, and we should be honest with our students about that. So that is all. that I have. It has been a pleasure and a joy having this time. Scott, I appreciate NCEA's invitation to let me do this. They're not seeing the links that I shared.
Yes, I added those in the Q&A.
Okay.
That person who was not able to see the links in the chat.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I just want to make sure they got those. So
Sure. Yeah, if anyone else has any questions, feel free to drop those now in the chat or the Q&A. We just have a couple more minutes left. If not, I certainly want to thank you, Christina, for this presentation. So informative and so timely with what teens and especially teens are dealing with nowadays in schools. And the statistics on social media are just staggering.
they are.
So, and I
And
also
I will
want
say,
oh, go ahead.
I'm doing one more. I get to do one more webinar with you guys in a month or two. And just so those that are with us know, I'm planning on doing that one on a deep dive on media literacy. And so I look forward to getting to do that.
Absolutely. I wanted to thank our attendees as well. We had good participation today. And if you are interested in any of our future webinars, such as Christina's, which will be next month, you can go to our website, ncea.org/webinars. And there's a list there of the upcoming webinars. And certainly, again, thank you, Christina, for this presentation. We look forward to your session next month.
Thanks, Scott.
And safe travels on your way back from Chicago.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Everyone have a blessed day. Bye-bye.